the very first March for Life post the decision overturning Roe versus Wade.
This is something to celebrate, to give thanks to God for. This movement and all of us involved in it have come a long way, and so much good has been done, and there's so much good that needs to be done.
First March for Life after the overturning of the Supreme Court opinion in Roe versus Wade in Dobbs. Now, there was a leak on Dobbs. Remember that? It came out in April. And it came up before or a little bit earlier than that, actually. And there's been an investigation going on. Well, the Supreme Court issued, they call it Statement of the Court.
I think all the interviews that they did appropriately and properly, Secretary Chertoff confirmed that in his analysis.
They are getting some flack because they didn't interview the justices, but I think that would be a very dangerous precedent.
I don't think absolutely correct. You don't interview the justices. The justices are essentially the clients in the case, and the court is the ultimate client, of course, as a body, but you don't interview the justices. But he did say, Judge Chertoff, that there was not enough to show anything other than that it was an inside job.
Why was this leaked? What was the purpose of the leak? I think that's what people want to know. Why did they do it?
They thought it may change an opinion, because as you guys maybe can lead through, just because it was a draft opinion, the original Roe was decided later on.
Yeah,
they changed. They can change their vote.
It's not an opinion until it's published,
out.
Printed, and entered into the court's docket.
So they thought maybe there'd be public pressure.
Exactly.
I think that was clear that the intent releasing this document, it was an egregious breach of trust, as the Chief Justice said. But there was an intent and a purpose behind that, and that was to intimidate one of the justices to change their vote. And we saw that even when they went before the justices' homes.
The Supreme Court relied on a decision in a case I argued in 1991, twice actually before the Supreme Court. It was re-argued, called Bray versus Alexandria Women's Health Clinic. In that case, by the way, on my side of the case, I argued for the private petitioners in the case. John Roberts was the Deputy Solicitor General of the United States. He argued for the United States government, who filed briefs on our side, saying that opposition to abortion was not discrimination against women. There was no class-based animus, is what the law actually says. And we won that case. And that line, opposition to abortion did not constitute class-based animus against women, was in Dobbs, cited by Justice Alito. Dobbs was the predicate to that, the overturning of Roe, but it still gave the states a lot of discretion. And that's where we've got, and also in Washington, we have a lot of work to do.
Especially at the legislative level, at the state constitution level. And I think what we have to do is make sure we're not rushing these issues to court, because what we just saw in South Carolina, where we know if there was a vote on life and the right education was done, it would likely win. But it was a case that went to the Supreme Court there, the state Supreme Court there, and they still found in their state constitution a right to privacy. And Dad, you and I talked about the idea that most of those judges on that state Supreme Court were indoctrinated their entire legal career, right or left, that there is a right to privacy in their constitutions. And many are expressing still disagreement with what the U.S. Supreme Court did and asserting their state right role, which is what the Supreme Court opened it up to. So it's a 50-state battle now rather than a battle in Washington, D.C.
We also have to realize that because the situation is different with Roe being overturned, the strategy and tactics are going to have to be different here. And the front and center on this has got to be the pro-life resource centers.
We have to protect the pro-life resource centers, which we do at the ACLJ, because they are on the front lines. And they are really the ones that are helping the battle that we are engaged in, too, for just the hearts and minds and changing hearts and minds. They're the ones that are able to talk to these women, again, on the front lines when these choices are being made. And that's why the pregnancy resource centers are always the ones that are under attack. But yes, we have a fight in all the 50 states.
There's a whole shift going on right now in the pro-life movement is how do you engage this generation? And I still think at the end of the day, folks, I'm going to say this later in the broadcast, you could put legislation through, you could fight this out in the state courts, which we are, but you got to change hearts and minds.
I do see that there is a change kind of happening where these younger ladies are understanding that is a human being and it deserves protection.
The medical technology has helped.
Yes.
My brother-in-law is a radiologist and has been for 40 years, said the technology was going to get so advanced, 3D imaging, multi-dimensional imaging, that the argument that this is not a child is just not going to work. And I think that's true. Let me also say this. The American Center for Law and Justice, front and center on these issues, ACLJ Action, front and center on these issues, whether it's in court, whether it's in city council hearings, whether it's before the halls of Congress or state legislators. We're there. And we're going to continue that fight for life. But at the end of the day, as I said, hearts and minds have to be changed.